The coffee shop hummed with the usual Saturday afternoon chaos. Espresso machines hissing, conversations overlapping, the clatter of cups against saucers creating an urban symphony. Ethan Miller sat at a corner table, his 5-year-old daughter Lily coloring enthusiastically beside him, her tongue peeking out in concentration as she turned a dinosaur purple. Every table was occupied. The weekend rush at Cornerstone Cafe meant finding a seat was like winning a small lottery. Ethan had arrived early specifically to claim this spot, knowing Lily needed space to spread out her coloring books while he caught up on work emails. "Daddy, is this a good purple?" Lily held up her masterpiece. "The best purple I've ever seen," Ethan said, kissing the top of her curly head. His laptop sat open but mostly ignored. Saturdays were supposed to be about Lily, not the architectural firm's never-ending project deadlines. But single parenthood meant blurred boundaries. Work happened whenever Lily was occupied, sleep happened when she finally went to bed, and his own needs happened. Well, almost never. "Excuse me?" Ethan looked up. A young woman stood beside their table, balancing on crutches with practiced ease. She wore a red V-neck shirt and denim shorts, her blonde hair pulled back in a high ponytail. What immediately drew his attention, and what he tried very hard not to stare at, was her left leg, or rather, the absence of it. Her prosthetic was visible below the hem of her shorts, a modern carbon fiber design that looked both medical and somehow artistic. "Can I share this table?" she asked, her voice friendly but with an edge of exhaustion. "Everywhere else is packed and I've been on my foot, she corrected with a wry smile. "For 3 hours at physical therapy. I desperately need to sit down before I fall down." Ethan's immediate instinct was to say yes, but he hesitated, glancing at Lily's spread of coloring books, crayons, and the hot chocolate that was destined to spill at some point because 5-year-olds and beverages were a volatile combination. The woman caught his hesitation. "I promise I don't bite, and I'm very good at sharing space. Only child, so I had to learn the hard way in college." "Daddy, she has a robot leg," Lily announced with the blunt fascination only children possess. "Lily!" Ethan's face flushed. We don't—" But the woman laughed, a genuine sound that seemed to surprise her as much as it did him. "It's okay, and you're right. It kind of is like a robot leg. Very observant." She looked at Ethan. "Kids are honest. I prefer it to adults who stare and pretend they're not staring." Ethan felt his embarrassment deepen because he'd been doing exactly that. "I'm sorry, of course you can sit. Here, let me just—" He quickly gathered Lily's art supplies into a smaller area, stacking coloring books and corralling rogue crayons. "Thank you." The woman leaned her crutches against the wall and lowered herself into the chair with a barely suppressed sigh of relief. Up close, Ethan could see the fatigue in her face, the slight tremor in her hands. "I'm Madison, by the way. Maddie." "Ethan, and this is Lily." "Hi," Lily waved, still fascinated. "Does your robot leg have buttons?" "Lily, that's enough," Ethan said, mortified. "No, really, it's fine." Maddie pulled her chair in and looked at Lily seriously. "It doesn't have buttons, but it does have special parts that help me walk. It's called a prosthetic. I lost my real leg in a car accident 2 years ago." The simple honesty silenced the cafe noise for Ethan. 2 years ago. She couldn't have been more than 25 now, which meant she'd been 23 when her life had changed forever. "That's sad," Lily said with childlike directness. "Does it hurt?" "Sometimes, especially when I'm learning to use it better, which is what I was doing today. But it's getting easier." A barista called out a name, and Maddie glanced toward the counter. "That's mine. Would you mind watching my stuff for just a second?" "Of course." Ethan watched her navigate through the crowded cafe, the crutches extending her reach, people unconsciously giving her slightly more space. She moved with determination but also visible discomfort, and when she returned with an iced coffee, she practically collapsed into the chair. "Long day?" Ethan asked. "Long 2 years," Maddie said, then seemed to hear how that sounded. "Sorry, I'm not usually this honest with strangers. But yeah, physical therapy is kicking my ass, my leg, whatever. The metaphors get weird. Ethan smiled. I can imagine. Can you? The question wasn't hostile, just curious. I mean, most people can't. Not really. They see the crutches and the prosthetic and they either treat me like I'm made of glass or like I'm some kind of inspiration for existing. Both are exhausting. I wasn't going to say anything like that, Ethan said quietly. I was just going to say that I understand feeling like life kicked your ass. Different circumstances, but the exhaustion that I get. Something in Maddie's expression softened. Single dad? How did you... The way you look at her, and the bags under your eyes, and the fact that you're working in a coffee shop on a Saturday while she colors. Maddie took a sip of her coffee. Also, no ring, but you have that dad energy. My father had it too. Had? He died when I was 16. Heart attack. She said it matter-of-factly, but Ethan heard the old pain underneath. My mom raised me and my brother alone after that. She always looked like you do, like she was running on fumes and love. Lily tugged on Ethan's sleeve. Daddy, I need the red crayon, the one that's like fire. Scarlet? Ethan dug through the crayon box. No, the other red, the happy red. Vermilion? No, the... Here, Maddie said, pulling a crayon from the pile and examining it. Candy apple red? That's pretty happy. Lily's face lit up. Yes! That one! She took it and returned to her dinosaur, now apparently setting it on fire. You're good with kids, Ethan observed. I was a kindergarten teacher. Before. Maddie's voice caught slightly on the last word. And now? Now I'm a 25-year-old living with my mother, trying to relearn how to walk and figuring out what comes next. She laughed, but it sounded hollow. Not exactly the 5-year plan I had. Ethan understood that feeling. The moment when life diverted so dramatically from the plan that the plan became a cruel joke. His own derailment had happened 3 years ago when his wife Sarah decided motherhood and marriage were suffocating her authentic self and left. Just walked out, signed over full custody, and moved to Portland to find herself. Lily barely remembered her. My wife left when Lily was 2, Ethan heard himself say. Just decided she didn't want to be a mother anymore. Packed a bag and left a note. Maddie's eyes widened. Jesus, I'm sorry. Don't be. I mean, I was devastated then. But now? He looked at Lily, carefully coloring flames around her dinosaur. Now I just feel grateful. Because she would have made Lily feel like a burden, and Lily is... His voice thickened. She's everything good in my life. That's beautiful, Maddie said softly. And also exhausting, I bet. So exhausting, Ethan admitted with a tired laugh. I'm an architect, which means unpredictable hours. Lily's in kindergarten, which means rigid schedules. I'm constantly juggling, constantly behind, constantly feeling like I'm failing at both. Are you failing? I don't know. You tell me. I'm working at a coffee shop on Saturday while my daughter colors dinosaurs. Not exactly father of the year. You're here, Maddie pointed out. You're with her. You rearranged your space so a stranger could sit down. And she's happy. She gestured at Lily, who was now humming to herself. That doesn't look like failure to me. The simple validation hit Ethan harder than it should have. When was the last time someone had told him he was doing okay? His parents helped when they could, but they lived 2 hours away. His co-workers were supportive but childless and didn't really understand. The other parents at Lily's school were mostly couples who seemed to have it all figured out. Thank you, he said. I needed to hear that. And I needed to sit down and have someone talk to me like a person instead of a patient or a tragedy. Maddie smiled. So we're even. They fell into comfortable conversation after that. Maddie told him about the accident. A drunk driver, her car crushed, 6 surgeries before they'd finally amputated below the knee. The phantom pain that still woke her at night. The insurance battles. The depression that had nearly consumed her. Ethan told her about the early days of solo parenting, the terror of being alone with a toddler who seemed determined to die by climbing everything, the guilt of leaving Lily with babysitters for work, the crushing loneliness of realizing his marriage had been hollow long before Sarah left. Lily occasionally interrupted to show them her progress or ask for different crayons, and each time, Maddie engaged with her fully, asking questions about the dinosaur's backstory and suggesting additions to the increasingly chaotic scene. "She likes you," Ethan observed. "Kids usually do. I miss teaching so much." Maddie's voice cracked. "But I couldn't. Standing all day, chasing kindergartners, I can't do that anymore. At least not yet. Maybe not ever." "What about tutoring? Private sessions where you could sit?" "I've thought about it, but starting over, building a client base, it feels like—" She trailed off. "Like climbing a mountain when you're still learning to walk," Ethan finished. "Exactly." "Daddy?" Lily tugged his sleeve again. "I'm hungry." Ethan checked his watch, 4:30 p.m. They'd been here for 2 hours and he'd barely touched his work. "Okay, baby, let's pack up." "Wait," Maddie said suddenly. "This is going to sound weird, but there's a pizza place next door. Would you guys want to have dinner? My treat, to thank you for sharing the table." Ethan hesitated. Accepting help, accepting friendship, accepting anything felt dangerous. Every time he'd let his guard down since Sarah left, it had ended badly. But Lily was looking at Maddie hopefully, and something in Maddie's eyes suggested she needed this as much as they did. "Only if we split the check," Ethan said. "And only if you promise to tell me more about your dinosaur expertise," he added to Lily. Lily grinned. "Deal!" Dinner stretched into 3 hours. They talked about everything and nothing. Maddie's physical therapy goals, Ethan's upcoming project deadline, Lily's obsession with dinosaurs, and her theory that birds were just dinosaurs that got small. Maddie made Lily laugh with silly voices. Ethan found himself laughing too, really laughing, for the first time in months. When they finally left, the sun was setting, painting the street in amber light. Maddie stood on the sidewalk with her crutches, looking uncertain. "Thank you," she said, "for letting me share your table and your evening." "Thank you," Ethan replied, "for reminding me that asking for help and accepting it isn't weakness." "Can Maddie come to our house?" Lily asked, yawning. "She can see my other dinosaurs." "Maybe sometime," Ethan said, then looked at Maddie. "If you'd want to. I mean, Lily could probably use some tutoring in reading. She's struggling a bit with the sight words. And I could use—" He paused. "A friend. If you need one too." Maddie's eyes glistened. "I really do need one." They exchanged numbers, made plans for the following weekend. As Ethan buckled Lily into her car seat and watched Maddie carefully navigate to her own car, he realized something had shifted. His mountain felt slightly less steep. His burden felt slightly less heavy. All because a young woman on crutches had asked to share a table, and he'd said yes. Sometimes the most important word in the English language isn't a grand declaration or a profound statement. Sometimes it's just yes. Yes, you can share this table. Yes, you can share this space. Yes, you can share this life. And sometimes that's where everything begins.